A very good morning to all. A warm welcome to Season 3, Episode 5 of our powerhouse session, Anthropology in a Changing World. Snehalata and I, Nandita, are the hosts for today, and it is our pleasure to welcome you all for this power packed session. This year's theme, Anthropology in a Changing World, invites us to reflect on how societies, cultures, and everyday lived experiences are constantly evolving and how it helps us make sense of these changes. We are delighted to be joined by two very distinguished guests. Let's start this session by introducing our first guest for the day, Dr. Megha Sharma, Vice Dean at the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, whose work thoughtfully connects the classroom, archival research, and everyday urban life. Dr. Sharma has previously served as an assistant professor in the Department of History and Archaeology at the Shiv Nadar University. In 2022, she was a senior researcher at the International Center of Advanced Studies, Metamorphosis of the Political. She has been teaching fellow in history at Ashoka University and as an academic associate at the BIT School of Management, Mumbai. She completed her PhD and MPhil from the Center of Historical Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Her research interests include social history, labor studies, urban planning, and gender relations in contemporary India. She has undertaken research with the Association of Indian Labour Historians as an archives consultant and has also worked with the Center of Education and Communication, New Delhi. Dr. Sharma has published book chapters and research articles in academic journals and public platforms, engaging with themes such as labor and informality, gender, sexual harassment, and gig workers' rights. Beyond academics, she enjoys trekking and hiking and is deeply interested in designing walking tours and exploring cities through their culinary and social histories. Once again, a very warm welcome to you, Dr. Megha Sharma.
It gives me immense pleasure to introduce the second guest for today's session, Dr. Atrey Majumdar, Associate Professor, Social Science, National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. She has got a PhD in Sociocultural Anthropology from Yale University. Ms. Majumdar was awarded the Andrew W. Mellon Postdoctoral Fellow at the Jackman Humanities Institute, University of Toronto. Ms. Majumdar was awarded the Venner Gren Post PhD grant for her ethnographic research on contemporary lives of Bhakti. Her current research on the devotional tradition of Bhakti braids with her own fraught spiritual journey to interrogate devotional self making in Vrindavan. She has successfully authored two books, Liberalism and Its Encounters in India, Some Interdisciplinary Approaches, Time, Space, and Capital in India, Longing and Belonging in an Urban Industrial Hinterland. She has an established record of scholarly publications like British Colonialism and Imperialism, Introduction, Selves and Society in Post-Colonial India. Ms. Mazumdar has conducted many podcasts like A Storm of Songs, Who's Afraid of Universals, to name a few. I welcome Dr. Majumdar for this interactive session.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Ma'am, you're muted. My first question is to Dr. Megha. You have shown profound interest in history and society. Was there a particular incident or experience that first sparked your interest? What is it about your work that you continue to enjoy the most today?
Thank you so much, and that's a wonderful question to start with. So, as I grew up in Delhi, one thing that you encounter, whether you're on the streets of Delhi or you're shopping in Delhi or you're eating, and that's not just true for Delhi but for any city, is that a lot of what we see has a historical origins to it. So, be it that you visit a park, be it that you visit a monument, be it that you even stop and have lunch, right? And it gets you curious that where is this cuisine coming from? Where is this dish coming from? So, that's where I started thinking that why and how do I explain what's happening around me? And that's something that historical research or historical studies at that time when I was a student allowed me to pursue. My passion for understanding what's my surrounding better, what's happening around me, but also helping me see that there are. So if there is one historical question that I want to pursue, do I go back to ancient times? Is what's happening right now? How far do I go back? Where do I search? All of these things is something that historical research allowed me to pursue, and that's what sparked my interest and has sustained it. I think you're on mute.
Thank you for sharing that, man. It's fascinating to know that, that there was how your initial interest evolved over time and how that sense of curiosity still keeps your work engaging and rewarding. Really nice to know.
Yeah, that's also one thing that one historical fact continues to be researched, and that's what's exciting about it. That even though we are researching the past, there are new ways of researching it. So it's never,
Yeah.
past is never dead when it comes to history.
And there's always a connection with what's going on. There's
Absolutely.
always
Yeah.
yes. Really nice to know. Thank you, man.
My first question is for Dr. Atrey Majumdar. Ma'am, your academic journey started with a degree in law, and then you continued to pursue social science. What marked this transition of subjects?
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here, and thank you for that question. I went to the somewhat renowned 5 year law program at the National Law School of India University, and I graduated in '06 with a law degree. By the time I was in the third year, what happens is when there is a reputed standardized test in India, a lot of parents say if you crack it, you have to go there, like the IIT, JEE, or the NEET, or the National Law School exam was not that famous in those days. I'm talking about early 2000s. But even then, it was quite a famous exam to crack. So once I got in, people were like, it's a reputed institution, you must go there. They did teach a number of social science courses, which piqued my interest, saying that maybe I'm less interested in the law and more interested in what is going on the streets of cities, or inside people's kitchens, or in forests, or whatever, in the world, rather than in a library of law. And one thing led to another. In the third year, when I was a student, I did an internship with the Center for Social Justice, which took me to an indigenously inhabited Adivasi district called Dang in the borders of Gujarat and Maharashtra. And this was possibly 2004 or 2005, I can't recollect exactly. And I found that a lot of my learnings about environmental law were actually proven to be wrong, or to be at loggerheads with social realities of the environment that I was introduced to in living with and participating in the society and the everyday life of this indigenous community that lived in this Dang district in Gujarat. And I came back thinking I was sure that I had to do something that was not the law. And even then, after I graduated, I did a year of practice and a year of legal research. But by then, I was sure that I wanted to study the social sciences. In what format, it was not clear to me. But anthropology revealed a kind of magical wand, which basically said that which basically told me that I could study something, some form of social phenomena in the library, in the archive, as also in the world. So part of what Megha was describing, anthropologists actually do as part of their research, which is that hanging out, at chai shack or on the road or in a village or whatever. And I got a taste of that way back in my internship at the Center for Social Justice, and that was what kicked off that kind of long journey. Which told me that I wanted to be an ethnographer, a research technique that anthropologists use. Um, and thereby this journey made sense there after that experience. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's a really useful perspective. So basically, from a very young age, you had an inclination to, learn social science along with the law. So that's something which is very interesting to know. Um, my next question is for Dr. Sharma. You have studied and worked on numerous aspects of contemporary India. Which among them had a deep impact on you and why?
So of all the themes that we study, I would like to summarize that in two words, which is modern and developed. These are two words that we hear so often around us that they've become commonsensical knowledge. We all have an idea what modern is, we all have an idea what developed is. But I also use these terms as a way to connect the colonial past because I study what is historically seen as contemporary India. So that's mostly the period from independence. So I feel that these two terms connect the colonial past to the more self-independent democratic nation that we are so proud of today, and we all participate as citizens in elections and all different institutions that democracy has to offer. And that's where I feel that what was modern for colonial times, how does that change? What was development at that time? How does that change? But also how that explains what's happening now. So I feel that these two themes and the concepts that come under them. So the more we unpack that what we used to think was modern earlier, how that's changing. So be it if I use an example to explain it, be it the reliance on English education, right? Was colonialism? Do we thank colonialism? I mean, of course, in quotes, for introducing English education. What do we do? So these are the kind of critical questions that we can ask. Then we can I feel becomes a good way to unpack what the processes have been over time, how they have changed, but more importantly, how they explain our present times. And these two, I think, become the founding ideas for that, where there are no easy answers, but there are a lot of good questions to ask.
That's a powerful reflection. It's interesting to see how working closely with these themes shape both your academic thinking and your understanding of everyday realities. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
My next question is to Dr. Atreya. Your interest towards study about religion is quite distinguished from conventional specialization. What inspired you to choose such a distinctive concept?
Thank you. I'm much to say about religion, but very briefly, religion has been as an explanatory device that throws light on how social bonds are generated, how are people bound to each other in a community. There has a very long history in the social sciences. Actually, it's not new. Since I'm referring to a book called Elementary Forms of Religious Life by the sociologist Emil Durkheim, which goes back to 1912. This is a book from 1912. So, and it's one of the kind of primary fundamental texts that are concerned with the study of religious life. As far back as the inquiry of society goes, the study and the inquiry or questions about religion are that old. But I come to it in a slightly different way. I myself am sort of a practicing, I won't say devotional subject, but I believe in bhakti. That makes me slightly a different kind of character in this drama, in the way that I become a devotee slash ethnographer, something I've written about. And so in 2019, I went to Vrindavan for the first time for purposes of a personal journey. And that morphed into a research project that has spread across the next 5 years, where I went regularly in short or long trips to the Braj region of Uttar Pradesh to study. We know a lot about bhakti through the texts of Kabir, Surdas, Tukaram, etc. These bhakti poets, but how does bhakti really exist today? And if so, how? And the being of the devotee ethnographer complicates this journey in this particular way, which is that an ethnographer who is not already a believer will ask the question, how do they believe? Whereas a devotee ethnographer will ask the same question in a slightly different way, how do we believe? And that we is a complicated we. If can the outsider researcher anthropologist can really merge with the community that is the devotee community? That's a complicated question. There are no easy answers to it, but that's the kind of question I fundamentally pose in my research. Can I share in the truth values of the devotee community of the practice of bhakti in the Braj region of Uttar Pradesh? I'm generally interested in devotional life of various kinds, which are slightly different from religious lives of other kind of, dogmas of religion or rules of religion. Bhakti or devotional cults of, even Sufi or other things are a little bit different in the way that they're not bound by rules of good or bad conduct. That's not the governing principles of that kind of, religion has, many religions have many strong rules about good or bad conduct. And devotional religion is distinct in the way that its fundamental averment is that it professes love for God. That's the first thing. And all other kinds of good or bad conduct or rules of this, can't eat that, can't do this, do that, all that comes later, or it's secondary in importance. A primary love for God, you go to God, not asking for things, but saying that I want to be united with you, is the fundamental principle that governs it. Yeah, maybe I'll stop there. Thank you.
That's quite a motivating response, and it gives us lot of food, enough food for thought, ma'am. You know, the kind of reflections that we have to do after this gives us a totally different perspective on what it is that you have researched on. Thank you so much. My next question will be to Dr. Sharma. Can you share a specific research you worked on in labor, urban life, or gender studies? And what did you discover from it?
So I quickly want to talk about two projects that I have done, and that also connects to the previous question you had about, the lived experience of the research. And at NLS, I'm also in charge of the archives. NLS also has its Law Society archive, and that's something that's true to the life of a researcher, especially of a historian. That is not only to look at the sources, like sources being the primary text. What do you use to write history? So not only new ways of looking at it, but also creating new kinds of sources to study the past. So I was part of two projects, and both were trying to do that, which is to find new ways, and that's where we were also borrowing from methods that Atre just described, which have been used for sociology, but are finding its way in historical research as well. And it's called as oral history. So you sit and you have long form interviews. That is a long interview of people to understand their lives and journeys. And what I was doing through these projects was trying to connect this. So one project looked at, and it was placed in Hoshangabad, which is a district in Madhya Pradesh. I spent almost a month over there interacting with students who have gone through, no longer students now, but were students of different alternate forms of education. So what it sought to do was that we all learn a lot of school things in schools, but what happened to that? Do we find jobs that where we apply it? If we don't, then do they become irrelevant? How do we remember and reflect on what we learned through our schools? And that's what the project tried to do. We had long interviews. Sorry, is someone saying something? Okay. Should I pause or something?
Yes, ma'am, this
Yeah.
was. Please continue.
Yeah. So that's what we did, and that's where the intersectionality of caste, gender, and labor came out quite strongly. And we were able to understand that how education as an experience is grounded in certain social positions, what your gender is, what responsibilities you have. So, something that students, our interviewees reflected that when they were students, they were often told that, oh, you're not that good, or you're very good. But how do then we place it? That same student was going back home, taking care of siblings, so perhaps was not doing well academically, but is later able to remember the science experiments and then uses it in some form of it for their work. So that part was really interesting. And the other project, and I'll quickly go through that, was a project on pandemic. And there, what we tried to do was that pandemic quickly created a new normal. And what the impact of the pandemic is will take some time. But at that moment, we wanted to respond at what were the immediate responses. So how students were re-socialized, how teachers were trying to think of new ways, how digital and hybrid learning was coming up, and what were the challenges that those again were captured through images, photographs, and stories. Something that we see is very ordinary. That's what we are doing at home, but was a critical historical moment that should be captured, and of course studied, and as a long-term impact as well.
Thank you for that, ma'am. It was really interesting to know how research can bring about voices and experiences that often go unheard. Many times we just take it for granted that, okay, we have to move on and we carry on as it is. But when we actually do the study, we actually are able to reflect on there's so much of things going on parallelly to our lives too. Thank you so much.
Ms. Atre, we would like to know how can today's generation invoke a sense of spirituality amidst emerging digital advancement?
That's a tough one. Let me respond in this way, that there is a strong, in the social sciences, there's a strong binary that is often assumed between religiosity and secularism. Secularism meaning distance from religion in some Western kind of notion. Secularism meaning distance from religion, state, especially the state's distance from religion, as opposed to in the Indian way of understanding secularism, which is that we remain equally exposed to all religions. So I think I would, instead of marking out some kind of formula for spirituality, let me say that I think it's important for students in schools, especially from, say, grade 7, 8 onwards, to be exposed to some kind of theological texts and dialogue. These are not very difficult, actually, if you get down to it. These are not very difficult to understand. And of various religions. No, I'm not just proposing that we do this with one religion, but have a dialogue, across religions and across spiritual traditions, and see what we can take from them that protect us and propel us towards thriving and prosperity and well-being in the modern context. In our current modern lives, what can we take from religion? A lot of climate change debates and people who work in the environment space, especially on climate change, are heavily drawing from religious edicts about protection of nature, respect for nature, from these theological traditions to talk about climate change. So, similarly, I think education, especially high school education, can definitely benefit from religious dialogue and exposure. And I definitely don't want them to be exposed to one or the other kind of tradition, but all traditions, as many traditions as is possible. About digital distractions, that's a malaise of our time that I haven't thought myself through. I will say maybe it helped to switch off your phone for 4 or 5 hours in a day, at least on weekends, so that more than spirituality, that students can be exposed to long-standing experiences of reading and thinking and writing and intellectual activity that is not governed by the use of a digital device or a phone or a tablet or whatever. I think that's more important to wean people out of digital distractions. And that's a problem we face even at university when we teach. I'll stop there. Thank you.
And we have been trying that in school also. Hopefully, we'll be successful. Thank you for the enriching response. Transforming traditional practices into a digitizing faith will be a good blend of ancient tradition with modern technology. So I'm sure my students will agree with it. Thank you, ma'am. My question goes to for Dr. Sharma that with gig workers being such a widely discussed topic in India today, what challenges did you face in understanding their experiences? Is there a particular insight or story from your research that you would like to share?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question, and also something that is talked about often. That, as you rightly pointed out, that is very well researched, and that was also my motivation, because what I feel is that what I was trying to pursue through the research was that the more we are taken by the newness of the gig work, and that's where so much of the research was coming in from. It's something new. It's a completely different form of labor, and when in some sense it is. And there are new forms of surveillance that are coming, but it also lies, and that's where the historical part of it really helps, because it also lies at a long transition that the labor question has been going, and not just in India, but globally. And the more we are able to see, so if I again put this as an example, the minute we step out of our houses, or even within our homes, we see that we have different forms of labor around us. We go to eat something at a street shop, we go to buy something from a small grocery store, we go to a big mall. Different forms of labor will come, from the security guards to the helpers over there. And all of these informal and multiple experiences of work have existed together, right? And in these conversations, the gig work comes. So if we are not cognizant of these multiple realities, we may be too quick to celebrate something as new, and that's where we are not fully able to understand the experience of the worker. And that's what I tried to pursue. I've been trying to pursue. That's an ongoing research. Is to understand the aspirations and the experiences of the workers beyond that 10-minute delivery. So, what is it that led them to these jobs? But more importantly, what do they do later? And the challenge has been, it's so diverse. There are so different forms of gig work that are coming up, that becomes it's quickly changing, and so many profiles keep getting added to it. But what is it that what's one thing that we've tried to do is to be around the sites from where they work, where we understand that what does the off time look like for them, when are they off the clock, how are they able to eat their lunch, what do they do to disconnect. And that's the experience that we do. Those are the plural voices that we are trying to bring out. That's one, but also then place it in a longer journey that labor has been trying to do. And one thing that's been absolutely fascinating in these researches is to look at the way in which camaraderie among the workers is coming when they're all waiting together. They could be for different brands, but they have what is can be seen as some songs they'll play, some forms of entertainment that they have, but also the way in which social media is helping them connect with not just what's happening in India, but in Brazil, in USA, in Australia, in UK. And all of those are used when they are putting up their forms of bargaining. So there is definitely a newness, but there is also a longer tradition, and both need to be kept together to understand what gig work means and how do we use it. What policies will be a good, responsible response from citizens at this time?
That's a very important point to know about, ma'am. Public discussions being held around gig workers and their lived realities is like, something which we haven't heard before. So something new which I have got to know today. Thank you.
My next question is to Dr. Majumdar. Your book of Space, Time, and Capital in India highlights hinterland urbanisms. Could you elaborate on the theme of your work and explain the relationships between time, space, and capital.
Thank you. The book is about various things, but the research for the book, let me begin with that, was done during my doctoral period in the outskirts of Calcutta, in these jute mill areas. So it was a highly industrialized form of the older form of labor that Megha was just mentioning, which had unions and which had a lot of political party affiliations and all of that, and that implication of labor to the architectures and built brick and mortar environment of factories was loosening. Factories were shutting down or winding down or doing just about enough work to just keep on going, almost like a dead weight. In the event, a lot of people who were from the real estate industry were trying to buy up these factories, and laborers were trying to resist it. And a lot of people who were part of the society that inhabited this industrial geography narrated, often in writing and sometimes often in speech and in writing. Some of them wrote books in Bangla about their own town and their own neighborhood and things like that, which also I looked at. They were making an argument about time. And this argument is not mine, it comes from them, these people who lived there, which who are a kind of mill town gentry, industrial town kind of middle class, who are not like Bangalore middle class, but of a small town, industrial town middle class, who often were government servants or school teachers, or but lived for generations in that industrial environment. And they said that there was a sense of decay and disappointment with the current time, because these industries were shutting down, etc. There was a mood of disappointment. This disappointment they framed against a longer time of colonial industrial activity, when ships had first arrived from the British at the dock of these areas. There were these docks where ships used to stop for repairs, even before Calcutta became the hub of activity. And some of them even remember Job Charnock, who's supposed to be the founder of Calcutta, to have come to their part, these industrial parts, and docked his ship for repairs. And they remember, there's no evidence of it, it's only oral history. And it's like a folklore, it's like urban folklore. They remember these times as times of great glory and great exposure to the global economy of trade and commerce. And they frame their own story in the context of the long story of colonial industrialism, rather than the small story or the new current immediate story of the decline of industry and the decline of economic opportunity in their industrial towns at this time. This was about 2009 through 2012 when I did the research, and the book came out in 2018. And so hinterland urbanism becomes that the amenities and the opportunities of actual big cities are not available to you. You live in a small town, industrial town, but the affect or the behavior of urbanism is already imbibed. You are an urban citizen without the direct access to economic opportunity or social opportunity that a metropolitan city provides, even if you're of a lower working strata of society. Even then, the big city offers certain opportunities of self making that industrial town doesn't provide. And a hinterland urbanism grows out of that experience of the mismatch between expectation and actuality.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your insights into. You brought a good connection between how it was and how actually what reality is. What actually you explained what was hinterland urbanism, because it's a very complex word if you talk about it. And beautifully, you have shared your insight based on time, space, and capital. Thank you once again. My final question is to Dr. Megha Sharma. Based on your experiences, what is one key approach or habit you would recommend to students interested in history and social sciences?
Mega's in the waiting room. I think she got locked out. Mega's in the waiting room.
Ma'am, shall I repeat the question?
Sorry, there was a lag on my end and I missed
Yes.
that. Could you please
Yes.
repeat that?
Yes. My
Sorry.
final question is to Dr. Megha Sharma. Based on your experiences, what is one key approach or habit would you recommend to students interested in history or social sciences?
Yeah, and I mean, before I answer that, it's a very carefully and neatly curated list of questions. So thank you so much for the thought that went behind putting these together. One thing that I would say is something that I have followed from my undergrad till now, is to be well aware of what's happening around us. So the more we spend time reading the news, the more it becomes easier for us to know what is it that we are looking for. So the connection between the past and the present is what underlies historical research. So the more we are able to do it, and the more thoughtfully and systematically we make it a practice, that we are aware of what's happening politically, socially, the easier it becomes, or more focused, not easy, but focused it becomes for us to engage with the past. And the second thing that I often tell my students, is the temptation to conclude. And that's what separates a historian from a judge or from anyone else who sits with evidence and facts. So it's very easy, or it's very tempting, that we'll come across a primary source. Primary source would be any material left of the time that we're trying to study. So if we sit with any document and any file, it's very tempting to quickly say that yes, this is what it is, and that's this. For instance, hypothetically, this ruler was good. This ruler did these policies which were good. But that's where we step back, because what history or historical research requires is to develop that historical temperament of laboriously going through multiple voices in a way that we can create a balanced view of the past. And that's the biggest challenge. So the more we see, the more we are tempted to say that ABC explains why D took this particular form, the the more responsible the responsibility of the historian comes in reminding us that we step back and allow these voices to come. So what I was saying is for the gig work as well. So if you see that you put the voices of the peace workers, their songs, their forms of protest, but also the reports that come from government and other documents, put everything together and then say what's happening. So the more we do the two of these things, the connection between past and the present, and balancing different voices without leading to quick conclusions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. And very practically you have explained the entire aspect. I'm sure students watching this show would have gained a broader perspective right from the gig workers. You put a connection to the COVID times. Everything you have connected so beautifully to gave a very broad perspective on what social science is about. We truly appreciate it, and it's been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Dr. Majumdar, kindly guide our students to have a prospective career growth in the field of social science.
Right. Um, what I, as a rule of thumb, what I first encourage students to do in their plus two, in the 11th and the 12th, is look for some affinities. Look for what is working for you, not without effort, but not even naturally is a bad word. What spontaneously is working for you, And often, as parents and teachers, we fail to encourage students to follow a spontaneous connect. And so, in the choice of subjects in the classes to 11 and 12, I would encourage them to, one, for practical reasons, take a basket of things which are wide ranging. Take a basket of subjects which are somewhat wide ranging, but keeping in mind at least one or two in which you're particularly curious. The cultivation of a high level of curiosity and a simple passion for learning um, is, I think, inevitable in any growth journey, career or otherwise. Even if you're learning how to play football or you're learning how to play the guitar, a terrific passion is required to do anything to the point of excellence. And that applies to professional growth as well. Once you are in university, pursuing either a liberal arts type of degree where there's a number of different things on offer, or a BA or a BSc in a particular kind of one discipline, which may be economics, which may be politics, which may be anthropology, which may be psychology, and whatever else. Um, I would say, like Megha said, um, stay with the learning process, especially in the early years. Students often give up thinking, I'm not good at this. It's difficult to know whether you're good at something unless you've spent a good amount of time, at least 2 or 3 years, with that discipline. So don't give us a discipline up easily. Secondly, do strategically thought out internships, which something we offer a model of an ARP BA program, which are also dovetailed to kind of certain career oriented or practice oriented courses, which then follow into internships. So do internships which are strategically thought out, which are thoughtfully curated, as also cultivate a whole range of reading habits. This is absolutely indispensable. You have to read not only things that you want to read, but anything that's lying around which seems even vaguely interesting, read it. A lot of good from investment bankers to government officials, high level government officials, to some lawyers and judges, to artists and writers. If you ask them what they did in their age, 16 through 20, they will say, I just exposed myself to all kinds of printed material that came my way, from sports magazines to highly dense Russian novels. They read everything, and everything else in between. A voracious appetite for knowing and especially reading is absolutely indispensable. For which I would strongly recommend staying away to the extent possible from the digital device, which interrupts the concentration in important ways, as teachers will tell you all the time. And finally, to never stop learning. Even when you're a professional, you're well into your working life, never stop learning. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. That will definitely help our students to get a perspective regarding their career choice. Thank you, both the speakers, for enlightening us. Now, we move on to the next awaiting segment of the day, a fun filled rapid fire round conducted by our students. Over to you, Reed.
Good morning, everyone. We are pleased to have the opportunity to listen in and interact with our esteemed guests today. We now have a fun filled rapid fire round for both of our guests. I am Reejat Thalia, and my questions are for Dr. Megha Sharma. I hope you're ready, ma'am. So, question one: what part of being a professor do you value the most?
Classroom is the best space to think and learn.
Okay, simple but powerful. That's pretty thoughtful. Question two: looking back, what is one thing you wish you'd worried less about as a student?
Marks. Should have worried way less about my marks than I did.
Yeah, I think every student here can resonate with that, and it's very reassuring to
Absolutely.
hear it too. Question three. What's one thing you enjoy that has nothing to do with academics?
Eating food. I really like food, so that's something that has nothing to do with academics, but yeah, I absolutely enjoy it. And
Yeah,
trying
I
out
think
new
that's
cuisine.
perfect answer. Question four. If you weren't working in academia, what do you think you would be doing?
That's a tough one. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it qualifies as an adequate answer, but perhaps I'll be in a monument studying, reading, and just thinking. Any historical monument, any part of the world.
Yeah, that's completely all right. I think any path, there's no rigid labels. And yeah, it makes sense. So, question five, last one. If you could instantly learn one skill, what would it be?
Any new language. I think new language opens up new ways of thinking, culture. It makes travel easy. So I would like to learn as many languages as I can and as instantly as possible.
Yeah, well, I think that's a especially important one in today's world. I think it would open up a bunch of possibilities too. So that's all from my
Absolutely.
side. Yeah.
Thanks.
Over to
Those
you
are
now,
fun
Trishnu.
questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Over to Trishnu now. Her questions will be to Atriya, ma'am.
Thank you, Reet. Good morning, everyone. My name is Srishnur Kaur, and my questions are for Dr. Atrey Majumdar. So, ma'am, are you ready for the rapid fire round?
I'm ready.
Great. So, my first question to you, ma'am, if not anthropology, then what would have been your next career choice?
Literature.
Oh, wow. That is a very fascinating career option. My next question, book reviews or podcasts, which do you enjoy the most?
Book reviews. That's a tough one.
I truly appreciate your choice, ma'am. My third question, ma'am, can you please tell us a prestigious moment or event which took place in your life?
I guess when I got my PhD, 2014. I graduated from the Yale University and
Wow,
anthropology department, and it takes a long time in the US to get a PhD, which is about 6 years. And yeah, 2014.
Kolkata. What do you like the most about being
Can you repeat that?
close connection with Kolkata? What do you like the most about being there?
Great food, excellent food.
Yes. Wow, ma'am. It's quite interesting. I'll definitely try to plan my next vacation to Kolkata. Thank you, ma'am, for answering all of my rapid fire questions so sportively. Over to you,
Thank
Snehalata,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, children. It's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks for today's Power Hour session. On behalf of Delhi Public School, Bangalore East, I extend my sincere and heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest for an insightful session. The knowledge shared and the perspective offered during this Power Hour session have truly added values and inspiration to all of us. I would like to thank the distinguished management of Delhi Public School, Bangalore East. It's a privilege to thank our respected principal, Mrs. Manila Carvalho, for her continuous support and encouragement. I would also like to thank our vice principal, Mrs. Preeti Suta, for her valuable guidance. My heartfelt thank goes to our HOD Social Science, Mr. T. Chandrasekhar. A big thank you to Mrs. Sonali Roy, HOD English, and Mrs. Yoni Dikshit from English Department for their motivation. A special thanks to HOD Computer Science Department, Mrs. Vikranti Ashtikar, and her dedicated team comprising of Ms. Pallavi and Ms. Pooja for their technical assistance. Thank you all for your gracious presence and for being such a lovely audience. Have a wonderful weekend ahead.